going to tell you something I almost didn't say out loud. When my first romance novel came out, I told almost no one. I had a pen name. I needed a separate identity so that Kiley Suarez, the woman who ran the back end of a medical practice, who also had a CPA background and showed up to every school function and never made things weird, she didn't have to be responsible for the woman writing love stories at 5 a.m. before anyone else was awake. Now, I thought I was being smart, protecting myself from opinions and the world. But what I was actually doing was trying to transform in private and in secret also, alone and hidden from the world. Now, here is what I know now that I didn't know then. And that's not just hard, that's working against how you are actually built. Today, we're talking about why you can't do this alone. When you try to change alone, your nervous system reads the change as unsafe. And when your body feels unsafe, it will pull you back to who you used to be. And I don't mean that as a motivational poster on someone's office wall. I mean it as a fact, a research backed neuroscience grounded. This is literally your wiring kind of fact. So welcome back to The Joy Shift. I'm Kiley Suarez. Get into it. If you're brand new here, welcome. This podcast is for women who have built a full, responsible, accomplished life and quietly feel like they disappeared inside it. Not because they're, ungrateful or unhappy, but it's because they're not done yet. If you've been with me for a while, you know we have worked on many things and we've been doing some real work together. I've been introduced you to frameworks called the permission trap, identity archaeology, the messy middle, practical rebellion, what happens when the people you love push back on your growth. And I wanted to gently name something else. And if you've been listening to these episodes and doing this work, mostly in your own head, mostly alone, journaling in the early morning or sitting with things on your commute, letting it turn over quietly inside you, that is not nothing. That counts. And it's also not enough, not for the big stuff, not for the shift that actually sticks. That's what today is about. We have all been handed the same story about personal growth. You hit a wall, you buy the books, you download the podcast. Hello, that's what I'm here for. You journal, you promise yourself you'll figure it out quietly. And then one day you'll emerge changed, polished and ready. And you think hard enough, long enough, and brave enough, and you'll figure out yourself out quietly and on your own. And then you emerge like a caterpillar from its chrysalis. We love the story because it's clean. It's independent. It asks nothing of anyone else. It's perfectly into the life of a woman who has spent decades making sure she's not a burden to anybody else. But I want to ask you something honestly. How long have you been trying to figure this out alone? Because most of the women I talk to, smart, capable, doing the work women, have been what I call the messy middle back in episode 7 for a really long time, sometimes years. And they are not stuck because they haven't tried hard enough. They are stuck because they've been trying alone. Here's the mistake we make. We treat change like a thinking problem. Like if we just get enough clarity inside our own heads, we'll finally be ready to move. Like the breakthrough is one more journaling session away. But change is not primarily a thinking process. It is a relational process. And the research on this is something I want to walk you through today because it genuinely changed how I see everything, including my own story. Let me show you why this isn't just poetic. It's biological. And before you check out, I promise this is going to feel like a relief, not a lecture. When I learned this stuff, my first reaction was honestly, well, thank God, it's not just me. So stay with me for a few minutes. You've heard of fight or flight, right? That's the stress response we all learn about. Threats show up and you either fight or you run, flee. Classic. And for a long time, that was basically the whole stress story in research. Here's what they didn't tell you. Almost all that research was done on men. When researchers started looking more closely at how women respond to stress and to major life transitions, they found something else. And it was that a researcher named Shelley Taylor published a study in 2000, a big peer-reviewed serious study. And what she found was that many women under stress don't just fight or flee, reach out. They tend to the people around them. They seek connection. They find other women. They call it tend and befriend. And it's not a weakness. It's not neediness. It is a legitimate research by pattern that shows up in women navigating stress and change. So when you feel this pull, When you are in the middle of something hard and your instinct is to reach for someone, to talk it through, to not be alone in it, that is not you being too much. That is your nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. That instinct to reach for someone, that's not weakness. Your nervous system is looking for a witness. Now, here's the second piece, and this one really got me. There's a concept in brain science called co regulation. Your brain is literally scanning for someone to confirm the new version of you. It is looking for a witness. And the simple version is this: when you are around someone who is calm, grounded, and safe, someone who generally sees you, your nervous system starts to settle too. Not because you talked yourself into feeling better, because being in the presence of that person literally helps your brain regulate. We actually do this for each other all the time without even knowing it. And what that means for the work we're doing together, the identity work, the permission work, the who am I becoming work, is that when you try to shift how you see yourself in total isolation, your nervous system has a really hard time trusting that the change is real. It keeps looking around for confirmation, for someone to reflect the new version of you back. Without that, you can journal for years and still feel stuck. Not because journaling doesn't work, because your nervous system is waiting for a witness. And the third piece, this one comes from a model of psychology developed by a researcher named Jean Baker Miller, is the simplest of all. It says that disconnection is just lonely. It's actually harmful, and that many women grow through relationship, not despite it. Growth through relationship isn't dependency, it's design. Through it, not around it, not after they figured it all out first. So here's what all this adds up to in plain language. You are not designed to do this alone. The pull you feel toward connection during hard seasons of change is not a character flaw. It is your wiring. And trying to override it, trying to white knuckle your way through a major identity shift in total isolation is generally one of the hardest ways to do this work. It's not that you're not strong enough, it's that you're using strength when you actually need support. And this is where my own story stops being cute and starts being instructive. Because I think this is more useful than any framework. I've been writing in secret for years. I had 5 completed novels, the pen name, the separate email, the whole architecture of invisibility. And I almost never published because as long as no one knew, I couldn't fail in front of anyone. I couldn't be judged. I could keep writing in the safety of my own private world and never have to find out what it meant if I actually put it out there. But then something happened. I found readers, real ones, women who read what I wrote and told me it meant something to them. One in particular was like, OMG, triple exclamation points. This story is so good and unique. I absolutely adore all the characters and the plot and the reference from the Latin culture and the mental health awareness that the fantastic Nikki Kiley brought to us in this book. Or another one that said, thanking this author for including a Latin FMC, that's female main character, and making her a hardworking woman. There are so many stereotypes toward Latinas that it really sad that some people can't see that we can be something else besides spicy or pretty Latinas. And here's the thing I want you to hear carefully. It was not the praise that changed me. I mean, the praise was wonderful, but it was not what did it. It was being seen. These women witnessed the work existing in the world, and something in me, something that had been quietly waiting for a very long time, settled into place. Like my nervous system finally received the message that it was safe to be who I actually was. After that, I became a different writer, a braver one, not because someone told me I was talented. It was because someone witnessed me. That is the distinction that matters. And it applies to every single thing you are trying to build or become in this world right now. Now, I want to be practical because I know some of you are thinking, okay, but I don't have that. My friends love me, but they don't really like get why I'm restless. My family thinks I should be grateful, for what I have. The people closest to me are ones most threatened by my growth. If that's you, you are not alone in that. It is one of the most common things I hear. So let me tell you what genuine witnessing actually requires because it's specific. It requires someone who can hold your vision without shrinking it. The people who love us most are often the worst at this. not because they don't care, but because your growth quietly challenges what they have accomplished and decided is possible for themselves and their own lives. So they minimize, they redirect, they say, but you have so much already. They mean well, but they are not the right witnesses for this. It requires someone who will tell you the truth without tearing you down. That is different from cheerleading. A real witness isn't someone who only says yes. It's someone who says, see what you're capable of, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, even when you're pretending. And it requires consistency over time. Not one powerful conversation, not a great weekend intensive, ongoing, regular presence, because change is not an event, it's a practice. And practices need a container. And this is why space is designed for women to be witnessed, whether that's coaching, therapy, community, or even one intentional relationship, matter more than we've been taught. It is actually the mechanism, that part that makes everything else work. You need to be witnessed to change. That is not me trying to sell you something. That is Shelley Taylor and Dan Siegel and Jean Baker Miller and 5 published books later, and everything I have learned about how women actually grow. Before Friday, I want you to sit with one question. Just let it settle wherever you are. The question is, who currently knows the real version of what you're reaching for? Not the polished version, not the one that sounds, reasonable and won't make anyone uncomfortable. The actual one, the full vision. Who knows that? If the answer is no one, don't panic. Don't shame yourself. Just notice it. Awareness is the first witness. That is information and it is exactly the right place to start. Slow, quiet inventory together, asking who's already witnessing your change and what might be missing. It's one of my favorite kinds of episodes to make. If there's one woman in your life who's trying to do this alone, who's hiding her becoming the way I hid my novels, please share this episode with her, not as a fix, just as a witness. That's the whole thing. Here's what I have to say to keep the lawyers happy. The Joy Shift podcast with Kiley Suarez shares my personal views and the experiences of my guests. It's meant for inspiration and conversation, not medical, psychological, or financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. Before making any big changes in your life, talk with your healthcare providers, mental health professionals, any financial advisor that you need, or another qualified professional. Take what resonates, leave the rest. Always choose what's right for you. See you Friday.